Hey everyone, welcome back. Thank you for joining us on now what is going to be the final episode of our series on natural archetypes. Again, my name is Chaand. I am part of somatic astrology, and I'm here with Shikha, who is a evolutionary astrologer. And together we created somatic astrology, which is a combination of somatic therapy, somatic experiencing, and evolutionary astrology. So, for those of the people who've been following us, are probably aware we're on the final episode. For those of you all who are just joining us, feel free to go back, see this series where we have discussed the different archetypes in pairs. And now we finally reach uh, Virgo and Pisces. And I will share the wheel. Actually, let me share the wheel and then we'll come back to the first slide. So we started on the first house, which was Aries and Libra, and we made our way through now to the sixth house, which is Virgo, Mercury, and Pisces and Neptune in the 12th house. So this is the journey that we've made together. We've discussed all the archetypes, and now we're going to be finally doing Virgo and Pisces. So without further ado, let's jump into this. And I am going to, again, Shikha, just ask you to lead us through the artwork, which all of this artwork, by the way, has been done by Shikha. Is an amazing artist. So, yeah, just lead us and guide us about how this came by.
Hi, everyone. So excited to be here. We've been doing the Natural Archetype series for a while now, and this is going to be our final episode because Pisces and represents the end of the soul's journey across the universe. That doesn't mean anyone with a Pisces placement, they're not going to reincarnate anymore. It's a part of a psyche, this archetype that will develop over lifetimes. So, but as the archetype itself, it's the end, which is why it's our final episode. And in terms of the artwork, let me talk about Pisces first because, life comes from water. Like the first form of life, it's like a single celled organism. It started in water. And then, our ancestors moved out of water into land. And that's where we come from. And as the last archetype, the last stop for the soul, it is about returning back to water. And we've also talked about how the soul's journey from Aries to Pisces is like a wave separating from the ocean. The ocean is the source, and Pisces is a wave returning back to the ocean, which is why it is represented by fish. That's where life comes from, water. And the Virgo artwork, Virgo is represented by the virgin, but it doesn't mean like literally a virgin. It's the archetype of purification and improvement. So it's represented by a woman, and it's one of the few signs that's represented by a human symbol instead of like animals or objects like Libra and Aquarius. I think this is actually very typical of mutable signs like Sagittarius, Gemini, and Virgo. They have anthropological symbolism, except for Pisces, which is part of the mutable cross, but it's not represented by humans.
Oh, thank you for that. Yeah, that's interesting. Every time that we speak, I learn something new. Like you mentioned about how Virgo is one of the few which is represented by like human form in the archetypes and the symbolism. And I agree. And I'm also curious here about, and before we just move on, about uh, is this, I'm guessing this is like based on the social context of, I'm guessing like patriarchy, which is like creating the archetype of more of a woman as purification and the virgin. I'm guessing that's how it's coming around because the essence of Virgo is, like you mentioned, like one of it is purification or self improvement and stuff like that. And then the social context kind of projects that onto a virgin, like which is pure and stuff like that, right? Like, is that? I'm guessing that's what makes sense because it doesn't have to be in a different social context. It would probably mean completely different. But we have lived under patriarchy for the last God knows how long.
Yeah. Do not get the wrong idea. Virgos are hoes. So, not virgins. Virgos are hoes. They will
Okay.
do anything to please anyone.
Wow. Okay, this is gonna be so interesting. I'm sorry, Virgo friends. I hope you understand the message here. Okay, no, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, we're not stereotyping Virgos as virginal or whatever, you know, the patriarchal stereotype is. No, this is about self-improvement, purification, and Virgos can be virgins, and as Shikha is mentioning, may not be. Might be the completely opposite. All right, cool. So then let's, I guess, move on to, or maybe we can talk a little bit about how we are at the end of the second house, where Virgo is concerned. And this is again going to be yin based, and both of them will be yin based. Uh, and yeah, I mean, I guess I don't really have much to talk about here because we just started a cycle from here to here. So I guess let's just move on, right? Cool. Love the slide about the natural expression of the sixth house Mercury and Virgo, of, like you said, distillation and purification and discernment through analytical precision. I'm actually going to let you lead us through, these important points. I just found them to be very, very succinct again.
I just want to say that once again, this axis is very personal to me and also to you. I'm a Virgo rising, which means I have Pisces on my descendant. My south node is in the 12th house, the house of Pisces. My north node is in the house of Virgo, 6th house. So I'm Virgo rising, and my soul is here to become more Virgo as I continue to grow through life. And it's also very important for you in terms of transits because you have Neptune transiting your 6th house. And you have a lot to share in terms of that, in terms of health, healing, service, right? This is the healing and service axis. Just give me a second. I'm a little chilly, so I'm going to increase the temperature. Okay. So Virgo Pisces, they represent the healing and service axis. Why healing and why service? Let's talk about that for a minute. Virgo is the archetype of purification, like we talked about, right? It is about constant improvement, self improvement, which is distillation, separating the non essential from the essential. That's why you keep purifying something so that you just find its essence. That's Virgo. So that's why Virgos are known to be actually very intelligent. They're highly analytical. Highly discerning. Virgos cannot be fooled easily. I don't know. I don't always feel that smart though, because I have a lot of Neptune and Pisces influence. I'm very foggy. But Virgos are smart. Virgos and Gemini together, they're ruled by Mercury, and these are known as the smartest signs. It's extremely full. So Gemini's intelligence is breadth. It's about interest and curiosity in their environment, and just constantly open to learning new things. Virgo is not intelligent in that way. Virgo is like laser like focus on one thing. It's not breadth, it's depth. And Virgo is about picking up something and really getting to the bottom of it, really becoming like a master. That's usually what earth signs also do. Earth signs have patience and they don't move from one thing to another that easily, right? They spend a lot of time on skill development. So Virgo's intelligence is very different from Gemini that way. And they form a square because it's a mutable cross. Gemini and Mercury also, Gemini and Virgo also cause growth in each other. But that's for another episode. So yeah, Virgo is highly analytical. It's about refining and improving. What are we refining and improving here? Systems, processes, and why does that relate to health? That's what I want to talk about. When we find problems, Virgo is known as a problem solver. When you find a problem and we fix it, why do we fix it? Because a problem directly or indirectly will affect people's health in some way, whether it's physical health or mental health, right? If there's a problem in policies, if there's a problem in home, it's a problem in your food or just hygiene or anything, like all these mundane things, that's Virgo. Virgo is not an interesting sign that way. It's about the mundane, but it's what keeps the world running. Like Capricorn, like Taurus, these are not exciting signs, earth signs, but they keep the wheels moving. That world depends on earth signs too for the stable foundation. So that's why it is also known as the karma yoga. Karma is also service. And why do we want to serve others? Again, everything just comes back to health in some form, whether that's physical health or mental health, spiritual health. So everything that Virgo does is eventually in service of health for both themselves and others. And others here is also an important point because when we looked at the wheel, and we've discussed this in previous episodes, um, the soul from Aries to Virgo represents self discovery and self application. From Libra to Pisces, there's other discovery and application with others. But Virgo is where the soul makes that shift. So it's actually from Aries to Leo where the soul is very self focused. It's Virgo where the soul begins to now consider others. With Libra being the first sign to fully become relational, Virgo is where we start serving others. And the whole point of evolutionary astrology or any form of like indigenous spirituality, we've talked about the self versus other so much, right? And how New Age spirituality is so individualistic because that's how capitalism wants us to practice spirituality, just be focused on self and not the other. But this is why evolutionary astrology is so holistic, because eventually it comes down to serving others. And that is what Virgos historically have also been associated with slaves and servants. Uh, but anyway, you see people who have strong Virgo placements, they are very service oriented. They want to help others. They want to fix people's problems. They want to make the world a better place for everyone. And that is how the soul transitions from self to other. Do you have any thoughts on that?
No, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I was just showing exactly what you were talking about, how this has moved, this is where basically the soul is now going to start engaging with the world. And the transition is happening through work and it's happening through service. And I think that's, everything that you mentioned kind of really resonates is, with the Virgo archetypes that I have experienced, that I have seen in my life, even in myself itself. It's definitely like really trying to figure, really trying to make things work in this kind of sense. Like they said, like refinement and improvement. And this is refinement and improvement, not just of systems, but of your personal health. For example, for me that I've seen, and especially like a Virgo that is very close to me, and I hopefully they'll talk about it, very regimented about their health. Like this is like, what to my mind comes is like Tai Chi and Qigong and self mastery in that kind of sense of the body, of the mind, of really, really like refining yourself, uh, improving yourself in that kind of sense. Uh, and I like also the voice of practicality, right? These are like, so like problem solving to be like, hey, what needs to get done? Uh, and absolutely, I think like the transportation of, pain or whatever we call, for intergenerational trauma ultimately comes down to healing and service. Specifically, as a part of my heritage is Sikh, and langar seva or seva just in general, which is service, is such a big part. And I remember hearing this astrologer on Instagram talk about how the Sikh community has undergone so much, there's massacres, genocide, there's like oppression under what do you call Hindu supremacy and everything. And it's been going on for so long. And what are the things? And Sikhism, particularly Sikhi, does not believe in astrology in that sense. But what he mentioned was that, guess what's the Sikhi religion or culture is about? It's about seva. It's about healing and service to people, free kitchens, like and part of it is, so the 6,000, there's 12,000, there's like 8,000. There's all about like transportation of pain. So again, this is definitely a personal house for me also. Also, like you mentioned, Mercury part, one of the one Mercury is in Gemini, the other expression of Mercury is in Virgo, and there's two different one Mercury is more within, I believe, and the other Mercury is probably a little bit more outside, trying to like uh trying to go towards people and stuff like that. So yeah, I don't really have anything else. This is, it's definitely a sign, and we'll get to that in the shadow expression of how this improvement stuff can sometimes cause problems, when it gets imbalanced. But what do you think? Do you want to move to Pisces?
I have a couple of things to add. The last episode, when we were doing Leo, I talked about the movie Michael because I just come back from watching it, and how Michael Jackson, obviously was so creative, and creative self-expression was very important for him. So it's actually during the movie, I had Googled his chart because I was so sure he would have like a massive Leo stellium. And he did have Leo placements, Venus and Mercury in Leo. But actually, it was not a Leo stellium that I found. I found a massive Virgo stellium. Leo placements and Virgo placements together in the sixth house. So, massive sixth house stellium. And that's also what really came through when, in the movie. And if you know about his life, he was very focused on improvement, like constant improvement, very hardworking, laser like focus. He'll do what needed to be done and just constant improvement. But I think without the shadows, because Virgo can be like really critical, and he was not known as a critical person, was always very encouraging of like people who worked with him. So thank God for that, because you do not want to be on the receiving end of Virgo shadows. You know how we talk about Leo shadows are not really that bad for someone who's on the receiving end of it. It's really hard on the person who has those shadows. Virgo shadows are the opposite. Like if you're on the receiving end, no, this it's really hard. But yeah, so that's Virgo, and it's also the path to gnosis, because the constant analysis, right? We talked about Mercury being with Gemini; it's very young. In Virgo, Mercury is very yin. It goes inward. So that's how it also becomes path to gnosis, because the constant improvement analysis, it also turns inward, not just outward with processes and systems, but also self improvement, right? So the soul really begins to learn about itself that way. So yeah, I think with all of this, we've covered the Virgo archetype pretty well. Do you want to move to Pisces?
Sure, yeah. And thanks for bringing up the Michael chart also, because that's something which even last time I was there, because I had Googled his chart also. And I was like, oh, even I think before the movie or something, oh, wow, this is so much Virgo. I personally like can see that because how he perfected his dance moves and how like it was. I think he was definitely very critical of himself, and it probably comes from his childhood. Also, we saw that, right? He was constantly being told to do that. It created great stuff, and he was definitely moved by serving people. Also, it seems like even at that time, again. I know this is a nuanced character, and the story is much more nuanced than what we see on screen. Uh, but yeah, you could see that how it was. There were just so much like improvement constantly going on, and which is why he was such a great dancer also. Cool. I think we can move on. Let's go to a very important sign for me personally. My uh, one of the closest people in my life, my sibling, my brother. He is a double Pisces, uh, dual Pisces, and so this is one of my close friends right now, also Pisces. So Neptune, Pisces, 12th house. Now again, there's a lot about Pisces in the 12th house specifically, which gets said, and it's considered to be very intense and dark. I don't know, like, these all these kind of in the general idea. Lead us through this, and what is the essence or the natural expression of this archetype?
Yeah, so my younger sister is also double Pisces. Our families have a lot of similar placements that way. Um, but yeah, Pisces, Neptune, 12th house. I think in the one word, I think Richard Tanner's really described this archetype well, that it's unfathomable. You really cannot fathom what is happening, and I feel it. My south node is in the 12th house, and I didn't know, like, before I came to evolutionary astrology, I just thought I'm Gemini, but that's not right for me. I have massive Pisces energy because that's my karmic history. My soul was very Pisces, and I am such a daydreamer. Pisces is just foggy and lost. I'm very lost. In spite of being Virgo rising, um, I have like South Node in Pisces in 12th house, right? And I have Pisces on my 7th house. So I'm also like very Pisces with others. I attract very Piscean people, people who are basically suffering and who are in need of healing. That can sound like a very patriarchal trope, right? Women attracting men who need healing, but that's just how my chart is. Gotta embrace it. But also Neptune is transiting my 7th house. My 7th house is ruled by my natal Neptune, and I have Neptune in my 7th house for another 12 years. Then it will move to my 8th house, which is also relational house. It'll be there for 14 years. So basically, the rest of my life, I'm so fucked. If I'm not careful in relationships, I'm a sitting duck for deception, because Pisces is very innocent. It's
Wow.
very naive. Did you want to say something?
No, no, no. Keep going. Keep going. Yeah.
So Pisces is the last stop for the soul. It starts with Aries, and that's the archetype of just not having any forethought, any knowledge, just self cleaning away of armor, fuck around and find out. With Pisces, it is the last stop. The soul has learned everything that it needs to learn. It has dealt with this karma and is now ready to merge back with the source, which is why it is the dissolution of the ego. The ego is the part of a psyche that we through which we discover the world we are in this incarnation. So there's nothing wrong with the egos. Ego is not something to be like ashamed of. We need the ego to function in this plane. Without that ego, we just be everyone will be Pisces, which is everyone will just be foggy and have no idea how to get anything done, which is why it's the opposite of Virgo. Virgo knows how to get things done. Pisces has no clue. Because the separation that we have, the sense of separation from each other, from matter, from the stars, that dissolves. The ego dissolves. And the soul realizes that everyone is connected. Everyone is one. We are all the universe that is experiencing itself. We are the universe manifest. So it is the balsamic phase of the soul's journey. This last is culminating. And in Jeff Green's methodology, he talks about this. Anytime two planets are in a conjunction from the slower moving planet to the faster moving planet, if that conjunction is closer to 360 degrees, a conjunction basically two planets being in the same place. So you may think it's 0 degrees, 1 degrees, 2 degrees, but the way you calculate that is from the slower planet to the faster planet. So sometimes the conjunction is in the balsamic phase, not in the new phase. And when that happens, when in the balsamic phase, we tend to start experiencing the source, which is why this archetype, Pisces itself, is balsamic, because it's just experience of pure consciousness, unmediated experience of the consciousness. That's why it's very spiritual. It transcends everything, like all the things that we do deal with in this material plane, and they're very important, like the systems of abuse that we have to experience, right? Now, class differences in terms of race, gender, capital, so all these very real things will melt away in the last phase of the soul's journey. And white, black, brown, red, yellow, men, women, and all other genders, everyone just, seems equal at this stage, which is why it is osmotic empathy. Like Pisces as an archetype is very empathetic and very osmotic. So like absorb the energy of the environment they're in. They're very sensitive. They're not judgmental. Virgo is judgmental because Virgo is discerning. Pisces is devotion, which is why you see a lot of why we call a lot of spiritual people as bypassers, which they do. They do bypass because they don't want to deal with the harsh realities of the 3D world we live in, and we have to deal with those. But there's also a component of, if it comes from a genuine place of just thinking everyone is equal, that there is some validity in that. And that's eventually what the soul is going for, where everyone is equal, irrespective of their flaws. Virgo cannot stand flaws. Pisces has no problem with flaws. So that is Pisces, which is why it's very confused and foggy, because it's overly compassionate. So it can be very unboundaried. It's a very difficult archetype to move through. And I have friends who also have like strong Pisces placements, and that area of life, they're very confused. And I did not know this a couple of years ago, when in my last relationship, when Neptune entered my seventh house. One moment I would just be like so compassionate and I would give away all my resources. The next I would be like freaking out, why am I doing this? So now I know how to work with this energy. And in its pure form, it's just like unconditional love for another person, like for the other, without judgment, without wanting to fix them, without any of the Virgo interference. It's a final stop, like, and that requires a lot of inner security to be able to just accept another person with their flaws. So ultimately, it's a very powerful archetype because it's just pure love. This archetype, Neptune is considered the highest expression of Venus. Like Libra, Venus, seventh house, the highest expression of that archetype is actually Pisces, Neptune, 12th house, because Libra, Venus, when the love from that archetype is actually the shadow is conditional. Like, I will love you if you do this and this. Otherwise, I'm not going to love you. And that can look like boundaries sometimes, but a lot of times, actually, just conditional love where we want the other person to change for us to be able to love them. But Neptune is just unconditional love because it's coming from the source. All of creation in its imperfection and flaws, everyone is welcome. It's just pure love, which is why it's the ultimate meaning. And it's just about just being, like to just be. You just be, let others just be without needing to fix anything. And you see how different it's like the polar opposite of Virgo that way. And like, do you have these feelings too when it comes to, your sixth house, right?
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that. As you were like speaking all of this is again a very very close interaction with Pisces, with my brother being Pisces, and I saw him through this very sensitive child growing up, right? Daydreaming. Like literally his biggest issue was he would be in the bus just dreaming out and I would think, what is he doing? And I would look down on this, right? Because I was again very Gemini, like thinking and analytical and stuff like that. And meanwhile, this kid is just like just looking outside, artist, very creative, right? Just looking outside and just dreaming. And he would daydream in class. He would daydream, he would just get lost here and he would get like, the school system like was very, very harmful to someone like him. But he was very sensitive to not like, like fighting and stuff. He was very, very sensitive growing up, and even still is. And so this is just everything that I'm hearing about this makes complete sense. I've witnessed this so close. Like, this was also the Piscean energy was dreaming, 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 and then just like created like this beautiful comic book as a kid, which was like unfathomable to me. Like, oh my God, like so, and it's because he saw all of that in his dreams. There's my brother Suraj also, and I hope he sees this episode. He was also like, from a young age doing astral projection, very spiritual. Just came in with that naturally. And again, I think a lot of us can do that, can astral project, if we, and I'm sure we've done this in some way, shape, or form, but he was like doing this consistently. He would do this. This was just his way. He was again very sensitive to energies. Even in this house he came and he was like, whoa, 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 very sensitive to energies, right? And very spiritual from a very young age. Didn't need to be told. I had to undergo a severe illness and near death kind of stuff to like come into that. He came in with that, like a double Pisces, right? Was telling me all about meditating for a long time. And I saw also how all of this, his osmotic empathy and everything, also took a toll because the guidance wasn't there. And it's probably the journey of Pisces is ultimately like the Pisces energy will feel, will go through this journey of, oh my God, this is amazing. And then, oh my God, I can't stay this here. And then we'll start like finding balance. I think that's just how it goes. So from that perspective, this makes total sense to me. And I've definitely experienced this very closely. And also saw the journey of, in this case, my brother, like also recognizing that, oh my God, like he wasn't doing well. He was, emotionally through relationships, having breakdowns. People are worried about him, didn't know what to do, didn't know how to do anything, right? Like you were saying, that Virgo polarity wasn't there at all. And can see how you probably channel the polarities, maybe some Aries and because Aries rising and stuff like that. They channeled all these different things to kind of have boundaried compassion, have set up his boundaries. Because I think definitely one thing he struggled with was no boundaries, so, like feel deeply and all this kind of stuff. So, so again, this is for me, it's always been a very fascinating like archetype. Uh, Personally, inside of me, you probably know my chart better. I don't. I think I have noticed this clearly when I had certain transits going on of this like unboundary compassion, this osmotic empathy, which was honestly quite painful for me. Like I had like no idea. It was for me, in my say, in that during those transits, and I believe they were a few years ago, they were happening. It was kind of like just something which was unreal for me. It was literally just sitting here and just like constantly just like feeling, and I couldn't sit and just sit with it. I had to like do something about it, right? Uh, so, anyways, that's what I have. A very, very powerful archetype, without a doubt.
Yeah, you mentioned dreams, about your brother's dreams, and then I got reminded that I also have prophetic dreams. Things I dream about, they tend to come true. Not that often, but once in a while, some random stuff, some meaningful stuff. And I like, as we're talking to me about Surah's dreams and how he created the comic book, I realized that, oh, that is why I have like these kind of dreams. My younger sister too, double Pisces, very intuitive. Pisces is very intuitive as well because they can just read the energy. But she's very boundaried. No one can cross her. I don't know what other transits or placements she has. I'll have to look into that later. But she's so boundary that you'll have difficulty knowing that she's double Pisces, including Pisces moon, which is like very sensitive. Michael Jackson was Pisces moon as well. Very sensitive person again.
Again, same thing with my sibling. Right now, you won't be able to recognize that. Right now, you wouldn't. You will not be able to say that Suraj is this and this, and I've seen his evolution. And so when I was actually reading even Ari Moshe's and Stephen Forrest's book about the archetype, it talks about all of this stuff, and it also talks about the journey of Pisces. Like Pisces is a culmination of a journey, but Pisces in itself will also undergo this entire cycle. Because it has kind of has been, the soul has been through that cycle. And it was so interesting because I was like, this was exactly what I feel my brother's life was. Like how there was like, this downfall where like there's so much pain and so much struggle, and then finally had to like come up and actually build that boundary and protect themselves from all this kind of stuff, really like regulate and really protect themselves. Because I do agree. I think there's so much power which needs to also be safeguarded and protected. Which if it doesn't happen, then there can be like spiraling. There can be, which I feel is one of the things about Pisces, and we'll get to that. Is that again another sign which is very susceptible if it's in a shadow expression can cause a lot of turmoil, a lot of pain, a lot of suffering. Uh, but yeah, I like the way you ended it by saying, to just be. And I think this was the one thing which I had remembered, at least in Stephen Forrest's book about, interestingly, see, Pisces, I feel like can have this natural connection with consciousness. Can just know that there is much more to life. We'll just know that. For a lot of people, for example, for me, I was always like, this is all bullshit. Like, it's life is only material. Everything that exists, I can see. Pisces just knows that no, it doesn't fucking matter. And that is something which is going to be hard to navigate under capitalism, right? Because ultimately, that is the source of peace for Pisces. Pisces will feel peaceful looking at the sea or looking at the sun. And yeah, I was actually, I met a Pisces in LA a couple of years ago. And I remember like she, again, a brilliant dancer, and sat there on the beach and was just lost in a way that I wasn't. And I could see the Pisces is just seeing the water, is seeing the horizon, and is immediately sensing that there's so much more to life. And this is where I can see that. And it's so hard to navigate that with under capitalism. Because capitalism it's not gonna pay you for that. Right? You're not gonna be able to like continue with that. And capitalism will actually mock you, will shame you for having this inherent understanding. But okay, what the fuck are you gonna do with this? So I feel like, that kind of thing. And I noticed in my brother also, you have to sort of like, to be like, I won't be like this. I won't be like this. I have to do something. Otherwise, who am I? Right? Because just to be is not valued enough. Right. And I see that struggle in a lot of people, even in myself, because we all have these like archetypes inside of us. But ultimately, I feel like if Pisces gets disconnected from this inherent understanding, then that can itself create so much turmoil. To be like, who you are, what this is all about, but now you're going to be like, no, it's not useful to me. This is causing too much pain, too much turmoil. You haven't served me, so I will put you in a box and I will put you in a corner somewhere. I don't want to look at you. And I think that can itself sometimes create some kind of disconnections. Obviously, it's all about balance, right? And personally, I've seen my brother like have this kind of, you know, decent balance of knowing things aren't like this. And so, anyways, uh, yeah, I don't have anything else. What do you want to? Do you want to say something else?
Yeah. I mean, if you think that your brother is not doesn't seem very Pisces now, I'm sure it's still there. It's just like being managed very well because the same thing with my younger sister. We had a puppy recently for 4 days, and she couldn't like bring herself to touch the puppy because she's so scared of animals, and she kept saying that we have to give the puppy away. And when we did, no one realized she was just in a corner in her bed, bawling her eyes out, like just crying so much. And we were all surprised that why are you crying? Like we gave the puppy away for you, And she was like, no, we're moving the puppy around like that. That empathy is there, but sometimes when you're so sensitive, you have no option but like really have this hard exterior, but then the softies underneath.
No, this is
Yeah.
absolutely very true. This was, I remember even when I was moving to Pune. So I was leaving Delhi to go to medical school, and the goodbye was at a railway station, very melodramatic. My first girlfriend was there; she was crying, Scorpio, and my family was there, and then my brother was there, and I was told later on that he cried a lot. Now I didn't felt it, but not that much. Like it was like okay, sure. I don't know. I was like Suraj cried. He cried a lot. And he was all when he felt a lot because for him it was like his brother is going and he was just this was who he was. When he had his breakups, even when he was visiting me, he was just feeling so much, so deeply, and also like in some kind of a shadow expression, really getting attached and really feeling the pain. And it was like I remember him telling me this consistently that he had to channel something else because he saw how this was so much, so he had to protect himself, like because he says that he's had like so much compassion for people, and it's too much, or so much sensitivity, like I said, which is too much because again, hypersensitivity can be a gift, and I believe it is, but it's kind of like when I was sick, hyper any kind of sound, smell was just like causing pain, right? And I think that's a very extreme thing which happens in certain illnesses to a lot of people, but it is still the hypersensitivity can itself be a curse sometimes when you're like, oh my god, how do I carry on? And so one of the mechanisms which Pisces figures out is kind of like a hard exterior or something. But you're right, absolute total softies inside. Look again, this is water sign, this is emotions, and anyways, I guess we should move to the shadow expressions because we'll probably have a lot to discuss there. We're already getting into the shadow expressions, I believe. Uh, yeah, and yeah, lead us through because let's just start with Pisces and go back to Virgo, I guess, because we're there. So the psychological instability, right, is kind of what we were talking about, or at least what I have witnessed from people around me, and I still do. Escapism and addiction, and this is the thing, which is that uh, I do believe this could be one archetype which could be more likely towards addiction or different kinds. I think all of them are, but because you have so much sensitivity, you will have to escape. One of the very natural reactions, and I feel it might be just the journey of Pisces, would be to be like, oh my God, this is so much. I can't do this. But that is also your essence. And when you run away from your essence, what do you fill that with? You don't feel anything now because you were feeling so much. Now you don't feel anything. Well, addictions will come in, right? To be like, okay, let me make you feel something, right? Uh, uh, I'm interested to hear about what you mean by deception and self-deception here and the other parts. That's something which I don't have much understanding about.
Yeah, that's a very insidious shadow for Pisces folk to be aware of. That a lot of times we just deceive ourselves, and then it makes us susceptible to deception from others because it is so innocent and so naive. Like Pisces just doesn't have any tendencies for like manipulation or conscious manipulation, at least, because it's just like it's pure source energy. It's Jesus energy. Jesus was by Pisces, by the way, and the birth of Jesus coincided with the age of Pisces, and now we're entering the age of Aquarius. So what happens is like when you're not able to read the 3D reality carefully, you tend to ignore red flags in people. And then you become susceptible to deception from others. This is why so many spiritual gurus are just con artists. There's so much deception that happens in the spiritual world because people are hurting, people are in pain, and someone comes to you and tells you, oh, do this and then you'll heal, or this is how you will overcome your pain. And they're just deceiving you. They just take away your money or abuse you in different ways. And also, like when Neptune entered my seventh house, my ex also like deceived me massively. I'm not judging, he did what he did, but I had become very susceptible to deception from others, and I still am. That's why, like I said, I have to be really careful relationally for the rest of my life now. But self-deception also occurs because we are we're losing discernment. So we are not able to read red flags, and that is on us, on the Pisces person. Like you have to develop discernment. Pisces really needs a Virgo polarity because it's very, very vulnerable. And I used to deceive myself when Neptune entered my seventh house. Anytime a planet first enters a house, that's when you feel it most. So when like Neptune entered your sixth house, you developed a chronic illness. And I want to talk about chronic illnesses next. But yeah, so at that point, when I wasn't aware of astrology at all, I was deceiving myself because I knew that this person is not right for me and this relationship is not right for me. But I kept deceiving myself that no, compassion will fix everything, or they're doing this because of some good reason, or just like not wanting to, just not being discerning, basically. And that is why this archetype called the self, we deceive ourselves, so others are also able to deceive us, and this field in general is just filled with con artists, right? So that is deception and self-deception. And you already explained the rest. Victimization, martyrdom also, because it's so unboundaried in one-on-one relationships, right? In its service, it becomes very easy to feel like the victim. Oh, I did so much for that person, and now they're gone, or they took advantage of me. And I definitely felt that way too when Neptune entered my seventh house. I felt victimized by my last relationship, but then eventually I took accountability. I don't feel that anymore. But that martyrdom, we talk about Jesus, right? That is peak Pisces energy. Like as he was being nailed to the cross, he was calling on God to forgive the people who were brutally torturing him, to forgive them because they don't know what they were doing. That is like peak Pisces energy. Like that's how you won't reincarnate after this, because you just have no hatred in your heart, no karma to burn, right? But it can cause martyrdom. I've definitely been there, done too much, then felt like the victim, felt like a martyr. Look, it's very painful. Which is why like it's so important to very consciously lean into the Virgo polarity.
It's very interesting. The deception part, I do want to make a point, and actually the other one also. And this episode might go on longer, but I think it's worth it. The deception part I noticed because even when we were young, Suraj was, I believe, very susceptible to spiritual con artists. One of them was The Art of Living. Uh, sure, everyone fucking loves that. Great. No shade, but there was also, and sure, I was very judgmental and very closed off, but then there's also a reality of these capitalist cults sometimes preying on people, and I could see that. Like Suraj was very driven. He went stuff, he went there, even went to like other spiritual people, and they were asking for a lot of money and stuff like that, and he noticed that, and I was always personally worried about him being deceived, always personally worried about him being deceived, and people like him who will like gravitate, because this is exactly the kind of archetype that in the shadow expression that people are waiting for. Be like, oh my god, there's so much love. They will believe, very naive, that we believe that. And this was definitely my brother growing up. Growing up, again, very naive. It's just too pure, just too pure. And I saw him get bullied, made fun of. Even now, he will not punch down on you. He'll not make fun of you. And I used to bully him. I used to like, make fun of him. And mostly other kids, we used to like bully him and like, make fun of him. He just couldn't. He just couldn't. And I saw what he had to do later on, because he was getting beaten up, because he was getting bullied. He started, I think he channeled the Virgo, or Aries became like bulk Jackie. jacked up, got strong, so that people just wouldn't beat up on him, right? But even after that, he's balanced the polarity now, right? Like he's like, okay, and he's learned through his experience. I think, if you see this episode, it'll probably make he's learned through a lot of this. Okay, these are the red flags. I'm not going to do. Then to the point of warning me, because when I was going into the Piscean thing, he was like, Sean, this astrology, that you're getting too much into this, because he's been through that and he's found this balance and semblance, right? The victimization martyrdom is interesting, uh, because I think for my transits that was definitely going on. This for me that was definitely the case. That's simultaneously the martyr, simultaneously the victim. Oh my life, I have to do this. I'm doing this. Me, sorry, me. I know it was definitely played a part with my chronic illness. And like you mentioned, like when the transit started, can you tell me which transit that was again?
Neptune entered your sixth house, the house of Virgo.
Virgo, yeah. And so exactly the Neptune, and that was when a lot of this stuff was happening, where I was already spent, had nothing too much to give, but I was nonstop just out there, uncontrollable. Uh, it was out of balance. It was also to the point that I was not happy, because I was like, I should be getting something in return, and I wasn't. It wasn't completely benevolent. And that hit me later on, but it was still also uncontrollable. I just could not stop, because I was still feeling it. Wasn't all, malefic or anything. It was clearly out of like compassion, but it was unbounded compassion, to the point that it was very hard for me to say no. And I know that played a very big part in my health. It was in my sixth house, and it was the service house. So this was, I was giving away, and just like, but also just going down, and definitely was stuck in this victim mindset. So, uh, is anything else on, or should you want to do the Virgo shadow?
Yeah. So about both Pisces and Virgo together, when it comes to chronic illness, right? Like it's just the health and it's the healing axis, the health axis. So it's also the illness axis.
Interesting.
Virgo, Pisces placements, prominent placements, or sixth house, 12th house placements can lead to chronic illnesses. That's when you developed your chronic illness. These are again like Neptune, Pisces, 12th house related illnesses, especially, they just cannot be diagnosed. You won't, like, at least, modern medical science cannot diagnose these issues because psychosomatic. It leads to psychosomatic issues. Virgo issues can be more directly body related, that can be diagnosed, but like Pisces health issues are just so unfathomable, like very foggy, very confused, right? It's hard to know what's happening with you. So it's difficult. And I have experienced it myself because it's my nodal axis, 12th house and 6th house. And when I did not know about this, did not know about astrology, I had some transits. Pluto was in conjunct my south node. Saturn was conjuncting my north node, opposing my south node. And I got diabetes. I was, I'm 37 now. So this was like maybe 33, 34 is when I would have developed it. I had no idea. I just had like all these weird body aches all the time. I did not know what was happening. And I wish I knew about astrology then. I knew what the evolutionary goals are of the transits that I used to have back then, so that I could have embodied them and avoided this chronic illness. But it happened. But also, as being Virgo rising, I reversed it in a couple of months. But it's just something now I have to be careful about the rest of my life. It's also like a very Virgo thing for me. I'm very careful about what I eat. I don't eat junk food. And I didn't used to like eat junk food and stuff like that even before those transits. But there was a time in life when I was just like very low point, overworked, drinking a lot. But this is why like knowing your chart and your transit is so helpful. I was drinking a lot, my friends were drinking a lot, but I got diabetes, they didn't get diabetes. And you're drinking old monk, a lot of sugar. I love that, by the way. We were in Malaysia, and anytime like anyone would visit to India or come back from India, we'd always just get like stock of Old Monk and Coke, and I used to drink that so much. Got diabetes, but my friends did not because they don't have those placements, I guess. No, not in their charts. My mom has. Uranus in her sixth house. She also very suddenly, out of the blue, got diabetes in her early 30s. And back then, diabetes wasn't a thing. That was like 30, 40 years ago. She's 70 now. And whole life just constantly stressing about her health because Pluto and Virgo, her soul is coming from lifetimes of having been very Virgo. Um, Again, like I have some other family members who have sixth house, 12th house placements, chronic issues. You got to be very careful. If you do not embody the natural expression of Virgo and Pisces, sixth house, 12th house, then it can lead to psychosomatic illnesses, chronic illnesses. Just like really take care of your health that way.
No, thank you for sharing that. I mean, this is the health access, like you mentioned, and I'll just make a point on for the Western audience about psychosomatic illness. If they're disabled people, chronically ill people, I think the stigma, it's a term that I personally don't use, although I understand why you're using that. That's what how it's used in the East, and even when I was in India. For clarification, I think what Shikha and I know what Shikha is talking about because we've spoken about this at length. Uh, Psychosomatic can give in the West can give a connotation that it is in your head, which is not what we're talking about. We're actually talking about um, what I would call like complex chronic illness in this sense, which is that, by the way, all illnesses are somatic, all illnesses are physiological. So there's no psychological illnesses. And I speak about this a lot on my TikTok and other stuff. I think what the point here to understand is that because of the significant stressors which are happening, specifically because of certain of these placements, they will, you will present to the doctors and they will think, they will just call you crazy and they will call you psychosomatic and they will diagnose you, oh, there's nothing wrong with you, you need therapy and all this kind of shit, or you have anxiety, which is again driven by this colonial bifurcation of mind and body and soul, that these are all separate things. So you have mental illness, you have physical illness, and this is a illness which is you're having symptoms, which you are having symptoms, and but it's also a physical illness. Like, we know anxiety is a physical illness. Depression is a physical illness. If we checked your biomarkers, they would not be normal. You would have significant inflammation, decreased brain derived growth, natriuretic factor. Like, there is like a lot of these issues which exist. Give me one. This binary of mind and body, and even actually, I guess the soul has been created, which is why the term comes around. But the idea isn't that, so, don't think that if we're talking about this topic, we're actually talking about is that this will present, which modern medicine will not be able to diagnose. But if you're having these unexplained symptoms, chronic pains, best believe it is a physical issue. There is stuff which is happening in the body. Modern science just can't diagnose it because they're not that mature. Yes, if we did fancy tests, which you won't be able to afford, the insurance won't cover, you will find that there's significant issues. In metabolomics, in fibromyalgia, urine and serum metabolomics show significant differences. Same thing in chronic fatigue syndrome and ME. These are physical illnesses, which if we did fancy studies like, I mean, I think the people who are educated in this know this, you will see mitochondrial dysfunction. You just, doctors just don't know about this kind of stuff. So they'll say, hey, it's this and that. It is physical, but they are complex. They are definitely hidden in the context. But ancient medicine has known about these illnesses, and they didn't have this classification of, oh, you have this illness, that illness, and they kind of knew what imbalances were happening. So I think we use drum psychosomatic to basically say that these are complex chronic illnesses which don't get modern diagnoses, and then you're told that it's psychosomatic, or you're told it's only something which doesn't get. But rest assured, it's complex, it's hidden. These are like things which I completely agree are Piscean in nature. Like, again, like not easy. So again, not in your head, it's in your body, and everything is in your body and mind. It's all the same, right? I just wanted to offer that clarification for our audience because you and I've had this conversation multiple times. But yeah, and again, the idea here being that will the placements cause this? No, right? We're not talking about a causal connection. We're talking about a causal coincidence, you can call it, or an a causal meaningful correspondence. And whether that's a physical influence of the planets, we don't know, right? But that's not what we're talking about. We know that the transits are activating archetypes, uh, which are inside you because you are the universe manifest. And certain of those archetypes, if in the shadow expression, can cause significant stress on you. And the way a certain stressor will present in your, depends on what archetype is getting activated. Sometimes it can be a very clear-cut issue, which can get diagnosed. And sometimes it is these very hidden, surreptitious, insidious complex issues which are causing significant suffering, but labs are fine. Labs didn't exist like thousands of years ago, but some of these issues still did. And so I think I just wanted to put that in, like, it's the nature of what archetype is getting activated through certain transits has the potential of causing inflammation, which tests will not find. Your CRP, ESR are not enough, but you will feel them. And I think that's what Shikha is trying to say there, exactly. And it happened in my case, and I've seen this in multiple things. And I wish I'd known, right? Which is why I do believe and astrology has been a healing modality. It has been a part of a healing modality. It wasn't only used by kings to garner wealth and all this kind of stuff, and now it's only become, hey, when am I going to make $1 million? No, it wasn't about that. It was about individuation, but it was also specifically a healing modality. There's herbal astrology, there is medical astrology specifically looking at transits. Hey, this might be coming up. If you embody and if you work with archetype, the stress, the inflammation, the immune function will be better. Even if something is going to happen, you'll be able to, go through that and come out of it relatively unscared, rather than, you know, as I call raw dogging life, which is kind of what I've been into, which is fine. You know what? Ultimately, whatever happens, happens for the best, I guess. Uh, But yeah, interestingly, like you mentioned, like, because the other fascinating thing, which, and I'll shut up after this, was that when you had diabetes, you got diabetes, and you reverse that. And I can share the story of the physician, because I was like, you had type 2 diabetes caused by significant stress. And, again, there's 32 factors which influence approximately like 30 plus factors which influence your blood sugars. And one of the biggest ones is stress. And we'll never talk about this, right? And there's multiple factors. They're all dialectically related to each other. Your diet is related to your stress, emotional repression, there's drinking and everything. All of these things will play a part, and you got diabetes. But then the Virgo got it back within a few months, which is crazy. I rarely see that, and I have been treating like diabetics my whole life in America, and I've had like family members with that stuff. But what was that? How were you able to do that? That was the Virgo in you who was like getting channeled. So that was cool to see that also.
Yeah, my North Node is in the 6th house. So I'm here to be more Virgo in this life, to have consistent daily routines. The 6th house represents our daily routines, our health routines, our work life, to maintain like healthy work habits, to not overwork, which I can tend to do. I have workaholic tendencies. That also is part of Virgo and Capricorn. But yeah, consistent daily routines is very important. And I also had Uranus, square my nodes up until recently. So there were some disruptions. But over the past year, I think like yoga has become something that I turn to very consistently. Nothing hectic. I don't do like really fast yoga. It's very gentle. It's yin. It's just like a lot of stretches, but that 30 minutes of yoga every day has been great. I actually have not been able to strength train so much in the past year. I did strength training quite a bit when I reversed my diabetes. But even then, I just had a CGM for a couple of weeks and I observed my sugar levels. They're all fine. They're like completely under control. I'm still on like very minor medication, nothing very I mean, when I was first diagnosed, my HbA1c was 10.7%, and in 2 months I got it down to 5.3% or 5.6, something like that. And then I got off medication, so now it's like I don't sit like pre-diabetic, so it's not like 100% gone, but even with just being more mindful, having consistent daily routines, getting my steps in and some yoga, I've been able to like manage it, and just like eating clean. So yeah, the Virgo focus has definitely helped. And I just really, like I said, Pisces really needs Virgo because Pisces is just too vulnerable. Do you
Okay.
want to talk about Virgo shadows now?
Yeah. Pisces definitely needs Virgo, and then the Virgo also needs like to chill out sometimes, because this is what I've seen. I've seen perfectionism, right? I've definitely seen that criticism and self-criticism is going, because again, the outer criticism, the boss, who's trying to control you, there's also a projection there in this sense, which is like they're very self-critical, can always be driven by this anxiety. Are they doing enough? Are they good enough? Can they do this better? And so this guilt kind of driven thinking, which is where the service can sometimes come from, like, like serving, understanding that, you're going to do this in a balanced manner rather than a guilt driven manner, uh, which is something which also I've resonated. And I've seen this in some close friends and comrades also, of doing a lot of good work on themselves and serving also, but then how that can tip over into overdoing, and how just that anxiety, okay, is this enough? Is this exercise enough? Can I do this? Can I do that? And how can I make this better? Make this better can just itself again replicate just a lot of stress. It can activate the stress mechanism. What was supposed to be harmonizing and balancing and uh, breaking you, giving you wholeness and wellness is now, it's a very good idea about what I'll say. This is the thing that got you sick in the first place. If you do it with the same intention, if you do healing with the same intention, you're going to get sick again, which is very personal for me. Because when I got sick, I was like, oh my God, I'm doing everything wrong. I'm going to do everything right. I'm going to be the best meditator. I'm going to be the best exerciser. I'm going to eat the best. I'm going to read all the books. I will do breath work every day for 100 hours. And I wasn't getting better. I wasn't getting better. I was getting sicker. And so then I had to like kind of find the balance and let go of a lot of things. So the shadows of this perfectionism can sometimes absolutely just wreak havoc on your body and your mind, without a doubt.
Yeah, like I said earlier, you do not want to be on the receiving end of Virgo shadows. They are annoying. So annoying to have a Virgo around you who's in the shadow form. I have very close friends with South Node in Virgo, both of them. My mom is Pluto in Virgo. So I've been on the receiving end of some Virgo shadows. So it's like that perfectionism, of course. Like purification can become an obsession with perfectionism. I gotta keep distilling, keep improving, keep purifying. And that's not possible. Perfectionism is not possible. So you'll just like run yourself down trying to perfect things, and just it creates a lot of anxiety. And that need for perfectionism turns into criticism of both self and others. And that is very annoying. Like I've seen my mom, she's hypercritical of everyone, constant nitpicking, fault finding, because thing is Virgo is smart, Virgo is intelligent. Like people with Pluto or South Node in Virgo, they're actually very smart. And what they are saying is correct. But it's just so fucking annoying to be constantly corrected, constant criticism. Like they cannot help it. And that's why they really need Pisces to just be, to understand that there is the divine in imperfection. Imperfection is okay. Just accept. You don't have to fix everything. And that's why Virgos can also suffer from hypochondria, that constant worry about their health. Am I healthy? Am I healthy? I have a friend with South Node in Virgo, and she's always deeply analyzing her own body. Oh, one day she's like, oh, I can't breathe. Apparently, I'm not breathing right. Something's wrong with my mandible. Like, very weird. One day she's like, oh, my toes are not right. I need to fix the posture of my toes. Like, very weird, but just like obsession with health. So not fun to be on the receiving end. And as someone who has a lot of Virgo people in my life, every time I would share like, oh, I have a problem. First of all, I'm Virgo myself. I can fix my problems. So that's fun. And I'm also very Gemini. So like IQ is not an issue here. So I get very annoyed when people try to solve my problems. But the thing is, like, when I try to share my problems, I just want someone to listen first, because I will figure it out. Don't worry about that. Like, I'll fix it. But like Virgo just immediately needs to fix it. Like, I'll share a problem and they'll be like, oh, do this, do that, and so on. No, like, I just needed someone to be present, like with my feelings. Like, the Pisces part of me just needed some presence. I don't need it to be fixed. I'll fix it myself. Like, I'm equipped. But just like not listening to, like, not making space for people's feelings and immediately the need to fix things, I find that really annoying. So if I ever do that, please let me know. I don't know, like, I may be just unaware of my own shadows, and if I'm annoyed by this shadow in others, I probably have it. So let me know.
Interesting. No, absolutely. I mean, health anxiety is a real concern, like, and it can be, yeah. But personally, I've had it for a while, and health anxiety can itself wreak havoc on you. And I've also definitely seen family members, and I think this is extremely common. I mean, and I remember I was on YouTube groups and like Facebook groups and stuff of again such a major like issue with a lot of people about like having completely intrusive thoughts on, oh my god, this is this way, this is that way, and is this wrong and is that wrong. So health anxiety again is really really bad. I personally struggled with this for a long time, and it was painful as hell. uh I can definitely see Virgo shadow expression, like you mentioned, like causing like anxiety and health anxiety specifically because it is like the health part, right? Perfection of the health, and then perfection of the health can sometimes tip over into just health anxiety, and then it's causing the same problem that you're trying to prevent, because the balance has gone off. What would be the inverted pyramid effect?
Yeah, so remember in Leo, we talked about the pyramid effect, where Leos have a very inflated sense of their ego. They think they're on top of the pyramid and everyone else just like revolves around them. This Virgo has the inverted pyramid effect. So Leo actually like struggles with pride. Leo is a very proud sign because Leo is very talented. And that's a transition the soul makes from Leo to Virgo because Virgo is very humble. You'll rarely find a Virgo who praises themselves or has or can take a compliment easily. Ev- I'm so critical of my art. Like anytime someone compliments me on my art, I can't accept it. No, I'm like, no, this needs improvement. So what happens with Virgo is that they think they're at the bottom of the pyramid. Leo thinks they're on top. Virgo thinks they're on the bottom. So they will place everyone else's needs above theirs. Leo will prioritize their needs first. Here, the soul makes like a very, because here the switch is happening right from self to other. Virgo is the turning point. So Virgo can become so service oriented that they put everyone else's needs above theirs. That's why they're at the bottom. They think they're at the bottom of the pyramid. And that's why they're also very driven by guilt. Like, it's also something very common with Capricorn again. Capricorn and Virgo are both very guilt driven. And we were talking about shame recently, how you're recognizing parts of you that are moving out of shame. And I was telling you, I don't know if have shame, but I definitely have a lot of guilt. Like, oh no, why do I have things that others don't? And I don't know if that's also shame, but there's definitely guilt. Like I move out of guilt that no, everyone needs to be taken care of. Again, it comes down to like fixing people's problems, right? Needing everyone to be in good health, physical health and mental health. So there's a lot of guilt like, oh my God, things are not right. I am not right. I am not good enough. Or processes are not good enough. Systems are not good enough. So, I mean, guilt doesn't really help when it's beating you down, like beating yourself down with. So it's like you recognize a problem and you know that something needs to be done and you can meet it with compassion, which is Pisces, instead of guilt or shame, which is like Virgo. So does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense. I mean, I will say that what the way I had read about guilt and shame was guilt uh is something that you do. It's not inherently wrong, right? Let's say you did make a mistake. Let's say like, hey, I fucked up. I feel guilty. Fine. Then you can change your behavior and or you can remediate, you can repair, you can reparate, this kind of sense. Because it's coming from, hey, I'm not doing enough, right? Or I did something wrong, or I'm doing something wrong. It's action based in that sense. Personally, again, it's not a big thing. Could be some people are guilty. People are doing wrong things. People are not doing enough. People are fucking things up, and they should be guilty. I think the issue here is where this is coming from, like from a shadow experiment where people are actually doing enough, but they still feel like I'm not doing enough. Like for let's say I'm still not doing enough. There's nothing that I can do is enough. Compared to shame, which is not saying that you did something wrong, is that you are wrong. Right? Shame is internalization of your, is the internalized belief of who you are as a person. So it's like, I'm not doing enough. No, I am not enough. Right. Uh, I am something. So, and that's where shaming comes in, when you're trying to say, hey, you did this thing wrong, you're trying to like point out guilt, or you can say, hey, you are a mess. Like you are wrong. You are bad. And that is the kind of feeling which gets internalized in when you're growing up as children, which is, when you don't get love from your family members, you will have internalized shame because, like, hey, why is nobody loving me? There must be something wrong with me. I am unlovable. So that is where shame comes in. Shame is like, okay, there's something wrong with me. So you're right. Like, I think this is more guilt based. This is more about, because Virgo is again action oriented. It's trying to like serve and like, okay, I'm not doing enough. I feel so guilty. Compared to like shame, which is something that I struggle with. Okay, there's just something wrong with. I mean, I think there's both of these things. Don't get me wrong. We all have guilt and shame about different things. Shame is probably the problem. And one of my spiritual gurus that actually mentioned that shame is actually somebody else's guilt inside your body or something like that, which is something which is very interesting, that it's not yours. It's somebody else has put that inside you. I never really fully understood that. But the way I understood that was that the shame is not something that I need to carry. It's not my problem. I have been shamed. It's somebody put this inside me. And which kind of makes sense because shame is, specifically done as a tool of control, right? You're shamed and you're like, you are this, right? Uh, Rather than, hey, you did this thing wrong. Can you change this? Or can you not do this again? No, hey, you're a mess. Nothing that you can do can change that. Right. So anyways, that's how I thought about it. And the inverted pyramid effect also makes sense. I can see how that's playing a part here. We are running long on this episode. Is it okay if we go to the last slide? All right, cool. So yeah, this is, I guess, the last portion. Again, one of my favorite portions on talking about the dialectics, which I believe is an important way of just understanding life in many ways. Um, Dialectics of matter and spirit, right? Like literally everything we're talking about. Pisces is just spirit. I mean, it's consciousness. Uh, and absolutely improvement, which is constant. The Virgo impulse to constantly continue improving versus just accepting where you are. And then the last two ones, which you said, was discernment, where it can be very discerning to the point of judgment. And then versus devotion, which is very interesting. I find that so amazing about, okay, I'm not going to judge. I'm just going to be focusing on devotion, IQ, and EQ. Uh, so this one, for me, this one encapsulates a lot of this, and so does this. But yeah, any final thoughts, Shikha, on this last slide?
I think it's very self-explanatory, but it reminds me of this recent post I read on Instagram, which talked about how individuation really is balancing matter and spirit. Because when we're on this healing journey, a spiritual journey, right? Like bypassing is very easy to do, and I've been catching myself in real time having sort of like spiritual bypassing thoughts, or maybe even actions that I'm not aware of. But to balance that with the reality of our physical plane, the physical world that we live in, which is what earth signs are about. But also not to become completely just, rigidly materialistic, because quantum physics, idealism, metaphysics, all of this is also real. So that balance really is what individuation is about, balancing our spirit and mind, which is basically what all ancient cultures have been about, balancing mind, body, spirit, because these cultures don't look at mind, body, spirit as separate entities. They're interdependent, right? That balance is what individuation is about. And yeah, I think the rest is just, we've already talked about it, is self-explanatory. It just comes down to like IQ and EQ. Both are important. It is important to know how to fix problems. It's also important to know when fixing is not required, just compassion and presence are required. But also, if you're only being present, only being compassionate, you may be enabling people. Sometimes they need to be corrected. Like you said, people do fucked up things. They should be guilty. They should fix their problems, right? Um, so with all of the polarities, balance is the objective. It's the goal, and it's an art that we're all learning. And yeah, I'm just so glad that we did this series. We did this deep dive into all of the archetypes, and I'm excited with what we're gonna do next.
No, yeah. Thank you again for closing this one out. It's been a long series consistently for the last few months. And this was a great episode also. I agree, like, Pisces just and Virgo just needs time for us to encapsulate. And I think we're only scratching the surface. Uh, but yeah, I think this is the end of this series. I mean, maybe we'll do something like this in different formats moving forward. And that I believe the next series, we'll be starting off at some point talking about. I'm guessing transits are going to be something that we want to do later. But leave your comments, subscribe and like if you like this stuff. Please, I'm going to send this to all my friends at least to be like, followers. And yes, absolutely, reach out to Shikha if you need readings. I highly recommend. And specifically when you're talking about the health axis, I still do recommend. I was like, having an astrological, especially in evolutionary astrology, uh, reading or guidance can really help you navigate through what's coming rather than just fighting. Kind of can sometimes just become punching a wall. You kind of need to know when you need to push, in what direction you need to push, and when you need to let go. Where do you need to let go, and how do you need to let go? Like, these are just kind of like themes which astrology has personally really helped me significantly in healing myself. So reach out to Shikha, and feel free to reach out to me if you're interested in somatic work, specifically regarding complex chronic illnesses. And we will be hosting workshops on evolutionary astrology in the future. So follow along and let us know what you think.
Yeah, thanks for closing this, and we'll see everyone soon.
Bye. Thanks, Shikha. Bye.